Welcome to Modern Mind, Ancient Book, where we're going back to move forward. We're finding a love for the law, the prophets, and the writings. This is a place for Christian seekers who want to encounter the Bible as it was first heard, rooted in its ancient world, shaped by ancient manuscripts, and preserved through living traditions. Today, we're going to be talking about the Gospel of Mark. Mark is the shortest gospel in the New Testament. Interesting book. This gentleman, John Mark, was closely associated with Peter.
Yep.
Super cool. One of the synoptic gospels. We've talked about this in the past, where these gospels, they have like basically the same content with nuances.
Yeah, that's the other two are Matthew and Luke.
That's right.
Yep.
And, people, the funny thing, this is funny to me that people would attack these gospels and say, well, they have differing details. You're like,
Yeah.
have you ever talked to anybody who experienced something?
That's really prescient considering what's going on in America today.
Yeah,
with
course
video.
There's different details.
Look at this angle, look at that angle.
You can watch the same video and come up with completely different, even remotely close ideas.
Interestingly enough, Mark really doesn't.
No.
It's
It's just
consistency.
Yeah, the consistency in these, the internal consistency in these, like, again, that textual criticism thing, right? Which is actually a science in interpreting and understanding documents and determining authorship and all that kind of thing. The textual criticism on these ones, the critics are in awe of the fact that, these are very internally consistent documents.
Yeah.
Did people experience things differently, remember a word differently, remember a statement or phrase differently? Sure. But maybe it was made differently at various times and various locations.
Right. Well, in the case of Mark, he was literally a follower of Peter, so probably he was compiling Peter's sermons and eyewitness testimony. And
that's right. Exactly what it is.
So that's he wasn't following Jesus himself personally.
Knew him, though. He did know him.
That's fact.
So the second gospel is named after Mark, who has been identified as the traditional author. Mark was also known in the scriptures by his Hebrew name, John. He's in Acts 12, and then 12 and 25, and then 15, verse 37. John Mark was probably from a wealthy family. Acts 12:12 indicates that his mother Mary had a large house that could accommodate many people in Jerusalem. This home was not only a meeting place for the early church, but was probably the site of several Passover celebrations with Jesus and his disciples. Passover.
Yeah.
Imagine
that.
Imagine this. So this is just one of the things that blows my mind. Okay, I got saved. God came into my life later. When I was 13 years old, I just stopped going to church. We went to Catholic church, sit, stand, kneel, peace be with you and also with you. I can't wait to get downstairs and have some food, and this is fun. That's all I ever thought about, right? And so, when I got 13 years old, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. This isn't for me. I don't believe it. I don't care about it. And then from 13 to about 24, I lived wild. I was living pretty wild before 13 because I grew up in a crazy house.
They call that feral.
Yeah,
feral.
I was feral. So,
And you're not even Gen X. That's amazing.
By the time God got a hold of me, I just dove into the Bible. And what I read, because I started in the New Testament, right? Like every new believer. I lie. Actually, I started in Psalms. And then I went directly to the New Testament.
Started in Genesis.
Yeah, well, you did the right thing. So, as I was reading, I'm reading about this, like, all these practices I've never seen before. Like, I know my mom was divorced a few times, and we had a Jewish lawyer. So I knew some things. Like, I remember them, I remember various Jewish things, right?
Right.
So I had enough context when I was reading this to go, well, wait a minute. I think I kind of remember that. It's okay. I think I kind of remember that from like Roz's house, right? And then as I continued reading through it, I was like, dude, this Jesus guy's Jewish? Like, this dude's like really Jewish?
Right.
And then, I go and I sit down in front of the now don't get me wrong, I love this guy's name is Pastor Denny. He was a wonderful man. He treated me very fairly, even when I was a complete jerk. I was ultra righteous when I first got saved.
Typical
Righteous.
Newbie. And I'm a newbie.
Yeah,
I was. That is.
I was all about the gospel, and anybody who didn't understand it the way I did, you needed to change.
How old were you?
About 24.
Yeah, that's also the right age.
And so, great dude, wonderful guy, had lots of mentors all through my life, but very few of them taught me about the Jewish sage Jesus, right? And so, my first two mentors were just Gentile guys in a Baptist church. And here I am like, hey, do you realize that this guy, like the sacrament of, my body, my blood, that this is like a dinner, I think. And they're like, no. It's passed on. We do it once every month. I'm like, no, I think it's like once a year. Like this, none of this jives with me. This is wrong. It's wrong. Something's wrong. Can you tell me what it really is? And nobody could really tell me, so I went right to Bible college. And what I found out is that even in Bible college, I couldn't have these experiences. So I went to Congregation Shema Yisrael in West Bloomfield, Michigan. And there I celebrated Passover every year.
Amen.
And it was good.
I'm looking forward to celebrating Passover.
Oh, man, you're totally invited. Everybody who's listening. Hey, one day this is going to be a large ministry that's going to be apostolic in nature, i.e. bringing Jesus back to the forefront and the ways of the way, and making it uncomplicated so you don't have to argue over it. You just can do it if you want to. And, hopefully we can help lead and teach people to understand that Passover is brilliant. It is wonderful. It is amazing. You should seek out a Passover next year, this coming year, and you should do it, and you shouldn't feel bad about it, and you shouldn't second guess it. You should just go to a Passover and sit down and enjoy it, even if they're not messianic.
Yep.
Okay? Just find some Jewish folks who are having a Passover and either go to their synagogue if they're doing it like live, like a bigger thing, or talk to your Jewish friends and be like, hey, invite me over, Hey. And
that's
just
not how we talk in Charleston, boy.
That's true. But just please, Jesus celebrated Passover. Side note, done. Passover. Now, this house that John Mark was part of, these were Jewish people, man, and they celebrated Passover, and Jesus celebrated Passover with them there, and he was a wealthy young man. It's important to note that also meant he was educated.
Yep.
Very educated.
Literate.
So it was a home that was frequented by Peter, as evidenced by the fact that the servant girl recognized his voice in Acts 12. It's probable that Peter led Mark to the saving knowledge of Jesus, since Mark is called Mark, my son, in 1 Peter 5:13. Paul and Barnabas took John Mark with them when they traveled from Jerusalem to Antioch in Acts 12. John Mark accompanied them at the beginning of their missionary journey and had to return to Jerusalem before the mission was completed in Acts 13. Barnabas wanted to take Mark with them on the second missionary journey, but Paul refused.
Yeah, he probably questioned his dedication.
I'm sure the road was not easy, right? So it's difficult to know if, family relationships complicated this decision for Barnabas, since he and Mark were cousins, Colossians 4, or the result, was that of a disagreement with Barnabas and Mark when they went to witness to an area in Cyprus, but Paul and Silas continued evangelistic ministries in Syria and Cilicia. So basically, this is the kind of the way my mind imagined this. So, John Mark is like a wealthy Jewish boy.
Right.
My guess is he got out on the road and was like,
not so much.
Listen, I'm going to go back and write all this down, okay?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just kind of the way I see it. Because, I know that if you're not accustomed to difficulty, it can be very challenging to go out and have a difficult life like that. And living out on the road is really no joke.
Right, but he came around. It looks like he got over that, if that's the case.
Yeah, eventually, you're right.
Because, he gets back in Paul's good graces eventually.
Yes. Well, and he proved his usefulness.
Right.
Anyway,
I mean, Paul
right?
even recommends him to the churches in his sphere of influence later on in the Bible, right?
Yeah. So John Mark's the author anyway, and he's known. He's all over the Bible. You can find him. He's not a hidden person. Now, Mark was not a personal follower of Jesus. He just knew of him. Mark was a companion of Peter and attended his preaching and recorded it.
Right. I could see him writing it down, and Peter most probably had a different message here and a different message there. In other words, he was probably drawing on Jesus's teachings, and maybe it was this sermon to this group of church, and that to that group of church, and Mark is there writing it down or hearing it anyway.
I love that this book is written from a Hebraic style and
Right.
not a Greek style. So it's written to the Gentile church because it's short and it doesn't have all these rabbit trails of
Right.
kind of prophets and
it's
writings
probably
and
written
things.
in Italy, actually.
Yep. So it's written to the Gentile church, but it's written from a Jewish perspective because it's not chronological. It's
Right.
Hebraic thinking.
Right.
It's kind of jumpy, It's conceptual.
Yep.
It's a conceptual writing. So, I mean, that's just interesting to me because if you study the difference in thinking, which is the reason why we have Modern Mind, Ancient Book, because the modern mind doesn't understand the way that the ancient mind did.
Right. Our education system's actually set up for the Greek way to think.
It's very linear.
Yeah.
If this, then that.
I mean,
if that,
if you
then
could go
this.
back to the beginning, it's actually the Western idea is Greek. And
Yes.
the Hebraic mind has got a different way to process.
It's
far
more
as that
conceptual
goes.
and
Yep.
it's more emotional. It's more human.
And perhaps a
It's
lot
more
deeper.
experiential. Oh, it's way deep.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very, very deep. The Hebraic language is very, very deep. So others think that Mark was an interpreter and that he preserved and handed on what he heard from Peter. Now, that makes a whole bunch of sense, right?
Yeah.
Peter was very, very steeped in the ways of Israel, in the back country of Israel at that.
Yep.
He was kind of like a hillbilly.
Yeah, he was. Actually, he was in one of the least Jewish parts of Judea.
Yeah,
The Galilee was literally a backwater.
that's right.
Nothing good ever comes out of Nazareth, bro.
And he and he was a fisherman.
Yep.
Right? So, now these are business owners, right? So I'm not saying he was like destitute or anything, but definitely not the highest class people.
And
Working
perhaps not
class.
the most literate person. I mean, I imagine writing, when you consider how much it costs to actually put ink to paper or ink to parchment or whatever,
Yeah.
I actually wonder how well Peter himself could write. I'm not saying he didn't know the scriptures, but I wonder how literate he was
Well,
as far as being able to write.
the fact is that Jewish society in the first century was set up not to make that the norm.
Right.
That's why they had scribes and Pharisees.
Yep.
So the Pharisees would teach, the scribes would record. The scribes would also interpret to a degree, right? They were like the record keepers. The average person, in order to become a follower of a great rabbi, you had to show great promise. That's what makes Paul different from all the others. Paul was chosen by the greatest rabbi of the day and learned under him. Now, let me walk that back a little bit.
Yeah,
Jesus was the greatest
Second great,
rabbi.
yeah, there you go.
Now, that being said, according to the Jewish worldview, the greatest rabbi of the day, and Jesus picked these people, these young men, and they were young men, not grown men. He picked them out of their professions, which means they flunked out of the yeshivas, right?
Yep.
They didn't move on to the next phases of the greater phases.
Probably because they had more important things to do in their mind, like go fish.
Well, dad and mom made that
Yeah,
decision
exactly.
too, right? So, the family business means a lot. So, that being said, in my mind, I imagine Mark being a very good ally to the leadership in Jerusalem, to Peter, to James, to these men, in that he was like a scribe.
Yep.
Mark was a scribe to the way. Very educated.
In the service of the way.
In the
for
service
sure.
of the way, yeah. And so, I wouldn't doubt that he bridged the gap between languages. It's likely that Peter had very limited Hebrew, fluent in Aramaic, and probably somewhat limited Koine Greek, enough for business,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But it's very likely that Mark was fluent in all of them.
Most probably. Well, I mean, Greek is the lingua franca for all, even the western part of the Mediterranean under the Romans. I mean, business was frequently conducted in Greek because everyone knew how to speak it.
You had to.
Yeah.
It was the way of.
Yep.
It was the way of administration.
Yep.
And Aramaic was the way of the people. It came from Persia, from Babylon. When they came back from captivity, they spoke Aramaic, not Hebrew.
Right.
Hebrew was sort of a dead language, still relatively known at this time. The ancient scriptures and liturgies were done in Hebrew, but it wasn't something that, you would necessarily be adept at. As a point in case, most of the New Testament is written with quotes from the Septuagint or the Greek translation of the Old Testament, not the Hebraic translation. That being said, there's minor differences. There's some translation details that, clearly show kind of theology and stuff.
Right.
And, the Septuagint is considered a curse. It was never meant to be translated out of Hebrew.
Right.
Because, they didn't want the Greek minds to misinterpret, break, and destroy the ways of God, which is actually what we're accused of today.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. And you got to kind of be at least understanding, because an ancient tradition is going to have feelings associated with it, and those ancient interpretations are going to matter tremendously to the people who have those feelings.
Yeah, and also considering that there are concepts, like vocabulary concepts, that don't translate easily. So I can understand
1,000%.
Yep.
And here's the reality for Modern Mind Ancient Book. Why don't we take the time to at least become familiar with these ideas and systems? Because here's what it is. It's not like we can't hear it and not believe it.
Right.
But maybe it enriches us. For me, it enriched me.
Yep.
And so, I'm not familiar with Mishnahs and Talmud and Zohar and all this. Do I believe all of it? No. But I also understand that you ask two Jews, you get three opinions.
Yeah.
That these people have been thinking about this for thousands of years.
Deeply.
And the whole point of that is there something to be learned? Let's take a break for our sponsors. What we're exploring isn't abstract theology. It's a fixed world, a practiced faith, a way of life that shaped how Scripture was heard and obeyed. If this resonates with you, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. The book of Mark was written in a real place at a real time by a real person. And that's important for us because we don't follow mythologies. We don't follow made-up stories. It's not like you can't prove this stuff. These are real people in a real place.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's history, but it's history that's conflicting with other histories.
Well, history is sometimes that way. I was going to say something I don't want to say, but yeah.
Well, here's the reality with human beings, and okay. Do you believe in absolute truth?
Yes, actually, I do.
What do you do with the person who doesn't believe the same way that you do?
You let them be wrong.
Okay, that's fair, but with grace, right?
Oh, yeah, with grace.
With grace. Okay, so this is what I'm getting at.
And you do try to persuade them, by the way.
Of course, you never leave a person. If you actually care about that person, then you would do anything and everything in your power to show them that Jesus overcame death, overcoming the curse in the garden, and bringing that individual, that person whom you love, to life if they would just seek him.
Yep.
Fair.
Pull him out of the grave.
That's right. And so here's me, okay? I'm a quandary of two worlds. Do I believe in absolute truth? Yes. But I also have read enough philosophy to know that you can't argue absolute truth with anybody because everybody has their own opinion.
That's true.
That's
an absolute truth, Roger.
That's right. It's either this way or that way.
I rest my case.
And so, here we are today. I know that Jesus rose from the dead. I know that God is real, and I know that his kingdom is coming. Know it beyond a shadow of a doubt. That to me is nothing if it's not truth.
That is the absolute truth.
Now, that being said, I am willing to accept that another person would not see that as true And I am also willing to say, for you, that's truth. Ooh, how does that sit with you?
For you, yeah, that's your truth and my truth. I don't know. I'm willing to be. I'm willing, as if I have any power whatsoever.
Sure.
I'm trying to get in through the back door. You know what I'm saying?
No. Let me explain, because this does sit odd with Christians, especially real kind of the person who has a idealistic morals, right? So this is let me explain deeper. For you, that's truth. I'm not conceding that it's truth. What I'm conceding is, as you as an individual have become convinced of a thing.
Okay, I'll agree with that.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so, what I'm willing to do is meet anybody where they are.
Oh, yeah.
And let them stay where they are if they refuse to change.
Well, I'm with you there. Otherwise, we would be going back 1,000 years to some really dark times.
Yeah, you could bang your head up against a brick wall.
We could have the 30 years war if we wanted to. And
a million percent.
Kill a bunch of people.
Which is a super bad idea.
Which didn't all it did was accomplish death and
Jesus
evil.
Gave up his life to change others.
Yep.
And guess what? He was way more effectual than he would have been if he had taken up a sword. If he and his probably couple hundred followers had taken up swords, we would never remember them today. But instead, because of the greatness that he displayed in word and deed, and being innocent and yet murdered, and then the biggest thing, coming out of that tomb and witnessing to people for 40 days, and then going up in the same way that he says he's going to come down, he inspired a whole generation of people to be willing to go out and be martyrs. And they didn't even raise from the dead.
No, they knew they weren't going to. Well, not in the way we understand it.
Nope, but they did affect great change.
Yep.
And so, how I want to affect change? I'm willing to let people have their truth. I'm willing to let people forcefully keep whatever it is they'd like to keep. But I'm also willing to enter into the arena of debate and state things that I know are true.
I agree with that.
And then just be hands off.
Yep.
Right? So I can say that Mark is an early book and it's written by John Mark and it displays reality and that the contents of it actually happened. And I can meet anybody, scholar or, lay alike, who could say that's not true because the contents aren't true. And I could go, okay, well, let's talk about it. And I'm okay with that.
I'd be okay with that also.
Yeah. And that's what I mean about absolute truth.
Right.
And the reason I ask that is because I know there's Christians out here under this sound that do not ever want to concede that another could have a truth for themselves. And they beat their heads against walls, right? And become very frustrated. And they want to change the world. And you know what? You're in danger of leaving the way when you hold that.
You're actually in danger of self-righteousness.
Yeah.
Which is a real problem for
self-righteousness and deception.
Yeah.
Because what you're going to find if that's you is you're going to find that the gospel is ineffectual for change.
Yep.
You're going to start being lied to, right? And you're going to lie to yourself. You know what? The gospel is effectual for change for those who are being called and conformed to the way. Many are called, few are chosen. You should learn Jesus' words. That's what had to change me. So I read through the New Testament, and then I got stuck in the Old Testament for years. Then when I got back to the New Testament again, Jesus meant so much more. And knowing that for 1,000 years Israel never kept the law, then I see the church, and I'm like, oh, that's what he meant.
Yep.
Many are called, few are chosen. Wide is the way to death, narrow to life. And then I just stopped being so rough on people.
Right.
So, blessed are the peacemakers.
That's true, but when I talk about absolute truth, I know we're talking about Mark, but there is one absolute truth. Jesus is the Messiah. God is real, and there is no other truth but that truth.
And if you love God, you're going to tell people that.
I mean, that's what I meant by absolute truth. There's no question that is true.
Yeah.
And, if you don't see it, well, I can't make you see it.
No, you can.
Nor is it my job to make you do anything.
No. That's God's world.
Yep.
Pray for those who persecute you. Pray for those who do not believe. Teach them about Modern Mind Nature book and tell them to listen to the podcast. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. That being said, this book covers a period of about 55 AD to 65 AD. It's, 10 years of John Mark hanging out with Peter.
Yep.
Interpreting maybe in different languages, writing his scribal works, recording the acts of the way. Him and Luke were kind of like the big guys when it came to the historiography of things, right?
They were probably the inner circle writers.
Yep. And so, you get this kind of uniform testament of the early witnesses. And Mark's gospel was written in Rome. He probably went to Rome, sat with Peter, and finished this thing up.
Yeah, most probably. Well, he was writing probably to the Romans also. I mean, that was probably his initial, he's in Rome or he's in Italy, somewhere in Italy, depending on which source you talk about where he physically was when he wrote some of this. But he's writing to Gentiles.
Yeah, and, the Jerusalem church eventually did come, at least some of the leaders came out because, the area of Asia Minor, the Mediterranean area, had growing and thriving churches.
Yep.
And, they needed that leadership. They needed that constant touch. So the recipients of this, it's clearly intended for Gentile readers. This is kind of like Judaism light, right?
Yeah.
So, it's kind of pared down and it's given to these like Gentile-led churches, and it explains everything, but it doesn't have all the rabbit trails that Matthew has.
Right.
And it's intended to just be kind of a little. It's a little bit simpler. It's a little bit simpler explanation.
Yep.
And it's super good. It's necessary because if you can get this, then eventually you can get Matthew, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in contrast to this, these teachings they clearly elaborate on. They're elaborated on in the Gospel of Matthew, which was written to a primarily Jewish audience. It's the primer for Matthew. The references that are made to the law emphasize the cessation of its governing influence. That's an interesting statement to me, because I don't think the law stopped governing, because the law doesn't stop until heaven and earth pass away. That's what Jesus said.
Right.
So, how much of the Torah wasn't really the Torah at the time of Jesus?
Man, that's above my pay grade at the moment. I'm pedaling as fast as I can to figure that out.
Well, that's a question that has to be answered, because when Jesus came into the first century Jewish world, what he came into was a form of Judaism that was offensive to God.
Yeah, well, Hasmonean, actually.
Yeah.
The intertestamental
fear-based, rule-based,
ritual-based,
right?
Liturgical. I get the feeling that a lot of the things that were done during this period, and I mean, this is human, by the way, this isn't a criticism, but you're just going through the motions. This is what I do, so I'm doing it, kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's the history of things.
Yeah.
And it's about like this fear, right? So like if you obey God completely, then everything's fine, but if you don't, it's not fine.
And who can?
And my teachers, they tell me that this is the way that I'm going to do it. And, these scriptures are not like widely circulated at this point, right? There's no, is it the Gutenberg press?
No, I mean, in the synagogue is an institution at just maybe 100 years old when this was going on, right?
Yeah, people were taught every Saturday.
Right.
Liturgical readings, chants.
Well, Jesus himself actually taught in
the synagogues, yeah.
Several
and
times.
he read from a prophet, Isaiah, right? The Isaiah scroll. So you would get that, but at the same time, you would be beholden to the rabbis and teachers that are, tasked with being the faithful stewards in your mind of these things. And then when Jesus comes, he's like, you guys aren't faithful stewards. You're teaching the people things that are too heavy for them, that have nothing to do with my Father.
Right.
And that's, that's the difference, right?
You've added too many stones to the burden.
So I would say that it's a false teaching to say that the law has ceased to govern. I would say it's a true statement that the Torah of God still stands. It's still worth exploring. It's still worth keeping, because Jesus told us that great are you in the kingdom of heaven if you keep it, but least are you if you break the least of the commandments.
Right, he didn't come to do away with it.
Yeah, I came to fulfill it.
Yeah,
Fulfill
to accomplish it
means that you practice it too,
right?
So he satisfied the requirements that led to death by becoming the firstborn, which is a holiday called first fruits. He was the first fruits.
Yep.
Which is in the Torah, right?
And we're the harvest.
And we're the harvest. So, we were never supposed to turn away from it. And I really feel like the church has become antinomian or anti-law for no real good reason. And I think that's one of the things where we can really, really stand to improve. And it's as easy as this. Don't be convinced that you have to be Jewish. You don't have to be Jewish. You don't have to practice Judaism. You have to practice the purified Judaism of Jesus. What is that? And that's a question you have to answer for yourself.
Yeah, that's the way.
That's the way.
Getting on the path.
Find you a good rabbi. Stick around for Modern Mind Ancient Book. We're going to talk about it a lot more. But it's not oppressive, I assure you that. And it's actually really practical. Like God created human beings and the earth. And on the seventh day, he said, hey, take a rest and remember me. I do that. To me, that's the purified Judaism of Jesus. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, super simple.
But also recognize that Jesus literally came so that you don't have to worry about sin as long as you stay on the path. He literally, that's salvation to me, is that, no human being can uphold the teachings.
No.
If the wages of sin are death, that means any sin. Literally, if it's a sin, it's a sin. So we're not talking about Judaism per se. We're talking about the way.
Yeah, we're talking about the purified Judaism of Jesus. Meaning this, the foot of the cross is enough it's sufficient for all things. If you come to Jesus and you rest at the foot of the cross, that's good. But it's not the place you should end your life. And I challenge you.
It's the beginning.
Yeah. I challenge you not to stop there. I challenge you to then begin to love the Word. Shut off the TV. Shut off your phone. Spend time with your family. Teach them as you're learning. The teacher is always rewarded more than the student.
Boy, that's true.
So, here we are. Gospel of Mark. Mark became a teacher because Peter was going to die. The next generation is stepping up. Generational faith. Mark is generational faith. So how do you want to read this? You want to imagine that you live in the ancient city of Rome, capital of the world. This is a city that never goes to sleep. Sounds like New York.
Yep.
It is the center of government, commerce, religion, entertainment, and sports. It is a city that's filled with sin and corruption. Emperor worship is supreme, but there's also every other kind of god that a person could imagine to worship. Every place of worship is a place of idolatry and immorality. In this city, there are houses, there are riches, there's really rich, and then there's poor.
Extreme
really
poverty. Poor. There's also an entire underclass of slavery.
Yeah. Indentured servants and real slaves. People from all over the world come to Rome to conduct business and enjoy all of its pleasures. You were raised in this culture and have been part of it. And that's where I think Mark became the interpreter, right? Mm-hmm. Because Mark understood this culture where Peter was a backwoods Jewish guy. Right? So, he needed this. He knew he had to break into this world because God was saving people that nobody would ever thought would be saved, right? When we get to Acts 15, they're like, how do we stop these people being so offensive to us? Okay, well, don't eat. You guys can't eat blood, man. That's like a big deal. You can't eat meat sacrificed to idols, to all these Jewish people around you, man. That's not going to work. And you can't go around, like, abusing your body in front of us. Sexual immorality has to stop. And when James addresses this, he kind of settles the matter. He appeals to the prophets, and what he says is, the prophets tell us that all of the Torah will be kept. But for now, we can't intervene in this. because we don't know what God is doing.
Right, God's doing bigger work than we can comprehend.
Yeah, James acquiesced to the fact that God is doing something, and it's not going to be his job to teach them to totally keep Torah because God is going to do it.
Yep.
That's what Acts 15 is really about. It's an interesting thing.
Going to write it in their hearts.
Write it in their hearts. The new covenant. Brit Chadashah. So you've heard the preaching of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and you've accepted him as your Lord, and you've had the privilege of hearing many great teachers such as Peter and Paul. These great men of the faith are now gone. They've all been murdered by this point.
Yep.
And you want to know more about Jesus Christ and the implications of his teachings in your life. You want to be equipped to share the good news with others. You read the Gospel of Mark so that you might understand the teachings of the gospel fully. You want to learn how Jesus taught the 12 so you can disciple others. Discipleship.
Yep.
Is that another weak thing in our church?
I think it depends probably on the congregation. In other words, not which church, not which denomination, but
the people.
The people. That's what I think. And I mean, that's my answer to that question.
Yeah, I've spent my time seeking rabbis, teachers, Like I legit went to rabbis and asked them to teach me.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was in Bible college, I went to my professor, Dr. Kunjman, as a matter of fact. Great man. Not Jewish, Indian man. Wonderful man. Greek scholar, among other things. And I said, Dr. Kunjman, I don't know if this is okay to ask you, but I know the Bible says it's okay, so it's okay for me now. Would you be willing to spend time with me and just teach me? Could we have coffee once a month or whatever? Like, could I disciple under you? You're a great man to me. And he said yes. And we met every month at Starbucks and we talked. And I really leaned into that man. And I was going through some really hard times. And it's because of that relationship that I am who I am today. Not because he taught me Jewish things, but because he showed me Christian love from a man who was much greater than I am.
Mm-hmm.
The richness of this faith is found in the relationship we share with one another.
Yeah, the fellowship.
In Jesus' name.
Fellowship is part of it.
Yeah, so, okay.
We lucked out, dude. Well, I don't think there was any luck involved.
I don't know.
Our congregation is actually...
Wonderful people.
Yeah.
Wonderful people. And the thing is like, you guys under this voice right now, right? There's a bunch of people that say my church is the woods or, whatever, right? But you're really missing out on something. I really want to advise you to seek a greater wisdom, and that's that you are better with others. That you learn more quickly, that you learn more fully when somebody who knows more than you takes time to help you. And then you learn more quickly and you learn more fully when you take what you've learned and you pour it out to the next. One of the gentlemen who are discipling me now, he's a wonderful man. His name is Mark Baker from Focus on Israel. He told me that his desire is to have sieves, not glasses. So when he teaches, he wants you to pour it out. If he's teaching you, he doesn't expect you to hold on to it. He wants you to let it run through you. And I love that idea. I think that's wisdom.
That's a beautiful image, too.
And the thing is I didn't even know that was a thing until he said it. And now that he said it, I know it's true.
Yep.
And that's, 20 years doing this, and I learned something amazing from him. And you know what? That's exactly what the Bible tells us to do.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, so it just, I am a simple person, and it took me quite a while to get that. But it was through the leading of a man who decided that he would disciple me. So you go to church.
It's hard for me to stress how important that is as a new believer. You can talk about, theoretically, you can talk about love, and everybody does. But if you're sitting at home by yourself trying to get all this, how do you know when you found it? The true, where the rubber meets the road is how you interact with your fellow human beings.
That's right.
Find yourself a good congregation, a good fellowship, no matter how big or small it is, where you fit in with fellow believers who love one another and see what happens to your spirit. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
It might not be the first place you go either.
It might not be. But you'll know when you find it.
Do it prayerfully. The key verse for this is, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give himself as a ransom for many. Thank you for spending time with Modern Mind Ancient Book. If you're a Christian seeker who desires a deeper faith, one rooted in the ancient world of Scripture, shaped by manuscripts, and faithful to the way of Jesus, you're welcome here. These teachings are offered freely, made possible by those who choose to partner with this work. If you'd like to continue the journey, you can subscribe, like, share, comment, and even support the ministry through the link provided in the pinned comment. We also really would appreciate your prayers. Until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and make his face shine upon you, and be gracious to you, and turn his face towards you, and bring you peace. Shalom.